guys, and welcome to another episode of Freewheeling with me, Dr. Dave Nicol. Now, today's question comes from Chasing Vet Med over in Australia. She's a vet student at the University of Queensland. So thank you very much for the question. The question is this, or along the lines of this. So, how as a veterinary student or as a new graduate do I go about discussing money and financial options with clients? So they'll follow your advice, so they will actually do what you want them to do for their pets. And this is a really good question, and it's one of the biggies for you guys as young vets. And I think actually it's not just for young vets, because if you don't get it fixed, if you don't get the answer to this question fairly early in your career, then it really can dog you in a lot of different ways. I said dog you, no pun intended. Veterinary podcasts go wrong. So it can affect you further down the track, because a lot of our reluctance to discuss cost comes from our feeling of not wanting to be rejected, not wanting to hear the word no. Or in other words, not getting into a conflict situation. A lot of the things in our life come back to us avoiding conflict. So we don't ask for pay raise because we don't want to get in conflict with our boss. We put up with behaviors from people around us that really aren't good behaviors because we don't want to get in a conflict. We don't recommend the things that pets really need because we fear that pet owners won't like us because there's a price tag associated with that particular option. So we don't mention it because we don't want to get in conflict. It all comes back to conflict. And so what happens is, before you even get to the point of the discussion, you have got this story going on in your head that says, I feel uncomfortable, I know this is going to end badly, the client's going to shout at me, they're not going to like me, they're not going to come to the practice, they're going to complain, it's just too much stress. So I'm going to make an easier recommendation which doesn't cost as much, and so that's the path of least resistance you can end up going down if you let the storytelling that clients are always going to say no, all clients are they're tightwads, they don't want to spend money. If you let that story win, then that's the level of medicine you're going to practice at. And let me guarantee you that will lead to dissatisfaction, because you'll never be working at the level you think, you believe, you should be working at. So how do you do it differently? How do you diffuse that little bit of rogue code, if indeed you have that in your head? And so I have a couple of things, and again, I'm just going to share what worked for me in my pathway in my career. So when I was a student, I took jobs in sales, I took jobs in retail, I took jobs, like real jobs, working in real businesses. So I started to learn that money wasn't a bad thing, it's just normal part of life. So I would work as a sales assistant in a little retail shop, and I would be selling things to people. I would be working on the reception desk at the veterinary hospital. So I would be getting comfortable with exchanging money and asking for money for services with people. So I don't think it's something that anyone that I was ever completely naturally 100% okay with. Although that said, I did used to fix other kids' skateboards in the village where I grew up and exchange that for money or that for sweeties or candy. So there was always a little bit more of an entrepreneurial streak in me, and if you are that, then you have to have some comfort level with money. But it was still an uncomfortable conversation. It was still a conversation where I felt like I have to sometimes force myself to have it. So it's just a matter of practice. And what you start to learn is that when you hold the ground and you ask for a certain amount of money and you don't blink, you don't feel uncomfortable with it, and they don't say no, that actually the story you tell yourself about conflict isn't true. And so you start to build a different story in your own head. I've spoken in previous podcasts about the storytelling and how big an impact the stories we tell ourselves can have on our behaviors and therefore our outcomes. And this is just another classic example. So let me share with you my technique, if you will, for how I communicate with clients such that money is rarely an issue. And so here's the thing. I assume the client came into my exam room to have a problem solved. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been there. So they start with an awareness of a problem, and they start with an intent to want to get it solved. I also start knowing that it is not my job to judge how much money these people have, regardless how they look, how they talk, how they smell, anything. I'm just going to do my job and get this animal the best thing, the best route to being well again that I can possibly plot out. That's what I'm going to make my recommendation on the basis of. So that's the start point. That's the thought process going on in my head. Now, there are certain things that you must do, and if you do them well, money becomes a non-event in a lot of cases. So the first thing is you have to make sure the client is acutely aware of what the problem is and what the consequence for inaction of leaving that problem actually is, okay? So what is the problem? The problem is, say, dental disease. So you show them the pus in the mouth, the wobbly teeth, the bleeding gums. You talk to them about what that's causing, so the consequences. The consequences, there's pain, there's inflammation, there's bacteria spilling into your pet's bloodstream. It's going to shorten its life, and it's going to significantly reduce the quality of its life, okay? So that's what I focus on, their awareness of the problem and the consequences of doing nothing. The next thing I want to focus on is building their belief, their trust in me. So it's know, like, trust, okay? So do they know me? Do they like me? Do they trust me? And I do that using rapport building techniques. So I smile, I shake their hand, I know their pet's or their family's name. I take time to ask them questions about them before I start working on their pet. I treat their pet with compassion. I listen carefully to their concerns. I ask them more questions. I repeat back. So they are completely aware that I understand what's going on in their head. Even if what's going on in their head isn't what's going on with their pet and what their pet really needs, they still need to understand and feel listened to, because that's building a really strong empathy bridge to the client. I am going to act with confidence, like I own this exam room and I own veterinary medicine, right? That is so important in terms of building their belief and trust that you want to get to the point where you are, or the team is, the only people in their head that are going to be fixing their pet's problem. Okay, so how else do you do that? You be knowledgeable about your subject, and you speak confidently. Okay, so when somebody says, does my dog really need this? Then I say, listen, I've heard that 1,000,000 times, and I do about 1,000 dentals every year, and every single time pet owners have that question, and almost every single time when they come back for the recheck, they've answered that question themselves, because they see the difference in the before and after. They see the extra energy, the life force, the vitality, the joy that their pet has, and they can compare that to 5 years ago was the last time they often saw their pets behaving, playing certain games, running around quite as freely, having that energy in their day. And so I will share that story with the clients to say, look, it's a great question. That's why we call it the silent killer, but this is my experience over doing 1,000 dentals a year, every year for the last 15 years. This is the outcome. Now, if you share stories about your experience like that, that is extremely powerful at building their belief in you and their trust in you as being the right person. So now we've got a powerful combination. We've got their awareness of the problem and the consequences of doing nothing, their belief in you as being the rock star to fix it. Now we've got to flip over to the other side, because up against those two forces are things that are overt and things that are covert. The overt thing is the price. So if it's going to be $1,000 worth of work, or 2,000 or 10,000, then that's the bigger the number, the harder it is to get them over the line. And so that's one thing. I'm not going to focus on that, because you can't change the price unless you're willing to change your treatment plan. So the only other thing that you can focus on are the covert, the unspoken things. And these are the client's deepest fears. The client's deep fears, you have to unearth them and answer those. Those are question marks in their brain, they're blockers to action. So if you answer them, what things might they be? Well, let's keep on the dental. What is a client's deepest fear about dental disease? And I'll tell you, the 3 top things are going to be their pet's going to die under anesthetic, because you're going to have to anesthetize it to fix the problems. Their pet is going to starve to death because it can no longer eat food when you take 6 teeth out, and that you might be gouging them and you might not be telling them the truth. And actually, does it really cost $1,000 or $2,000 to do a dental? So they're their fears. Death, number one. Slow death through starvation, number two. And is this actually legit, number three? So you answer those. Now you answer the legit query by doing the first two things well. If they're really aware of the problem and have big trust in you, the legit thing's off the table. You answer the other two by sharing further stories. So I understand you're concerned about anesthesia. Let me tell you, I can't tell you it's zero risk. This is exactly what I say. I can't tell you anesthesia is zero risk. What I can tell you is that I've been doing hundreds, if not thousands, of anesthetics a year over the last 20 years of my career, and I have yet to lose an animal under anesthetic. Now that's true in my case. I never have. That's partially luck, partially following procedure and process and being good at what I do also. But if you can't say that, that's okay. You can still say, look, it's not zero risk and there are risks, but we do thousands of anesthetics every year, and almost every animal without any other sign of problems comes through those anesthetics absolutely fine. Here are the things we do to minimize those risks. And you know your numbers. You can be saying, look, the anesthesia risk for a dog is 0.05% mortality rate. The mortality rate in cats is 0.1%. Okay. Thank you, Sheila Robertson, for those stats, by the way. Name check. If you've not listened to Sheila's blunt dissection episode, do so. It's an absolute cracker. So you've got your facts, okay, and that's how we answer the anesthesia problem, okay, by being confident, having our facts or numbers ready to hand. Now, is my pet going to be able to eat again? Bam. Okay, listen, let me tell you how many teeth an adult dog has. They start with 42. We're taking 6 out. There are many, many teeth left. But let me tell you about the ones we're taking out. They're sore. Your pet's not eating there in any case right now. If we look in the mouth, you saw there was lots of tartar and pus on this side, and it's quite clean on that side. It's because all the chewing is happening here and none of it's happening there. Your pet's not going to miss those teeth. What they're going to get back is a comfortable, pain-free mouth, and that will make a huge difference. So I hope that answered your question. Okay, I just dismantled that fear, and in doing that, I further build their belief in me as being the rock star that's the best person to fix their animal's teeth. If you do those things, and they can afford the treatment, that's a big if. You can't control that bit, but if they can afford the treatment one way or another, then they will. And cost becomes, to my mind, a non-event. Cost is mostly an issue for vets who create this monster in their own head. It's completely unnecessary. I hope you've gotten a little process you can follow there in the exam room that's useful to you. So let me know what you think. Comments, as always, either underneath in the blog or in the YouTube comments. Or you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. It's any of those sites. It's at Dr. Dave Nicol, DrDaveNicol. So for now, that is it. Keep sending your questions in. You got great questions, guys. We love to get them, and we will answer them right here on Freewheeling. Why do I always almost forget the name of my own goddamn podcast? Idiot. All right, you have a great weekend. Be safe, be well, be happy. Take care.